Okay, so I have 12 tomatillos peeled, and you don't have to wash them. And then I have 10 serrano peppers. You can find them at the commissary, definitely. And you boil them in a pot, like a big enough pot to fit all of them. And the water, I prefer the water to be boiling already. And then you just simmer it down. And you add in your peppers, and you add in your tomatillos. So the tomatillos, you don't want them to be, you want them to be cooked, but you don't want them to like explode in the water, because then it'll give it a different flavor. So when they're like an olive green, this is like a bright green, you can tell when they turn into like an olive green, then you take them out and set them on the blender while your serranos finish cooking. So then you let them boil. You can do it together or separate, that way you know when your tomatillos are ready and when. But if you can tell from this too, like you start flipping them around and you'll see they start like turning into an olive green, and then the chiles, the peppers, usually take a little longer. Okay, so after a few minutes, I would say like about 10 minutes, they start turning into like an olive green. I don't know if you can start seeing the olive green color on it, on the tomatillos at least. See the difference? So once the whole tomatillo is an olive green, then you can take them out and put them in the blender. But you see how, and then the chiles takes a little longer, the peppers. But yeah, just until they start. So I would say like about good 15 minutes. Boil them, the tomatillos, and then the chiles about 20-30 minutes, depending on how high you have the stove. My stove is electric, so it's a little slower to cook. So now I've started to add the tomatillos to the blender, and as you can see, some of them don't turn the olive green like the whole way around, they stick to one side. So what you can do is with your spoon, you can just kind of like flip them over and let them boil on that one side so that they don't pop if you leave them in there, like the whole thing. And then once you flip it, you can see it's settling to that color. And you keep adding them. Once it's, see, it's almost to that green, but you don't want it to pop. That one seems like it's going to pop. So these are ready. Oops. Well, we add them to, and the chiles are not ready yet, but you want to add this one since it's bigger. I guess it'll take a little longer. Start flipping. There we go. And then the chiles or the peppers are almost there too, like 5 more minutes I would say. Okay, so then now the serranos peppers have been getting like an olive green color. See? And you can see they're like softening up a little bit now. You can add them to your blender. And you can turn off the. Now another thing I forgot to mention is when you're adding them to the blender, you want to make sure you don't add any water to it. I'll show you guys in a little bit. So you want to add your peppers and make sure there's no more, like no extra water, because tomatillos release a lot of like water and juice, so you don't want, your salsa will taste different if you add water. So it's better to use one of these spoons. So once you have everything in the blender, I like to add some oregano. Just maybe like a little bit, maybe like a few shakes. And then I do add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. For flavor, and then you can add the salt in the blender or after for taste. So then you blend so it's all mixed well and liquidy. I like to start off in low, and then everything comes back and then I'll keep going. And you just let it blend until it's well mixed. And if you have a good blender, I would say maybe like 5 minutes. But if you have an older blender like mine, I usually let it go for about 10. Once you see it's well blended, then you take it out. And you can add it to a bowl or a jar, and you have to let it cool down. And then you can just refrigerate it, and if you haven't added your salt, then you add your salt. And like I said, a couple teaspoons to your flavor, like to the flavor that you like, the taste that you like, but you don't add any more water, you don't add anything else. Just like that, and you let it cool down for, I would say, an hour or more to be able to put it in the fridge. And then you can make chilaquiles, you can make tacos, anything with this. So it's half of one of these jars, and you can find all the ingredients at the commissary.